Hey there, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Total Ramblings. Today we are looking at the second episode of Series 2 of Star Wars Andor. And of course, it goes without saying, there's going to be some massive spoilers here. I am going to be giving you a plot breakdown and my thoughts on the episode. The first 3 episodes have dropped on Disney+. I believe they're releasing 3 episodes a week, and each block of 3 either takes place over a year or there's a year's gap in between each block of 3. So just a reminder as to where we were at the end of episode 1. Cassian Andor had stolen a prototype TIE Avenger TIE fighter and was due to meet his contact, Porco, I believe his name was, only to find that his contact has been killed, and he's run into a bunch of pirates or renegades or a gang or something who are stranded on the planet in the jungle without food. And at the end of episode 1, whilst arguing over how they were going to escape, because they're starving, there was a gunfight had broken out. Now, I'm going to come back to this particular bit of the storyline in just a sec, because it's not obviously, but during this episode, we are jumping around quite a bit between several different sort of plots and sort of threads all happening at once. Dedra Miran, having met with director Krennic, expresses to her boss at the Imperial Security Bureau that she doesn't want the Gorman project. And he kind of she says that she'd rather be pursuing Axis. Axis is, of course, her investigation into Cassian Andor, and kind of pursuing him because she feels he's important. And her boss is kind of like, well, you should have caught him and then made him famous. And he kind of says, the Gorman project might be seen as a demotion, but you're going to have complete control over this. So I can assume that following her conversation with Krennic, that her plans have been approved and that she is going to be running the Gorman operation. Meanwhile, we bump into another character from Series 1, another person whose ambitions and whose life was destroyed by Cassian in his initially sort of minor rebellion. Cyril, can't remember exactly how you pronounce his name. If you recall, he ended up working at the Imperial Bureau of Standards in a sort of very faceless role. But it turns out he's been doing quite well for himself. He's very ambitious, as we know. He's moving up the ranks. We are reintroduced to him in a scene where he is talking a new recruit to the Standards Bureau and basically saying how he managed to uncover a sort of big conspiracy. And it turns out he and Dedra Miran are living together on Coruscant. So that's nice for them, isn't it? Back on with Andor's friends, Bix and Co. They're on this planet where they are hiding out, and of course they weren't very happy in episode 1 because a small Imperial task force of about 40 Imperials has turned up and is doing a planetary census. This planet harvests grain. You can imagine the Imperial military, they're going to need a lot of food for their troops and pilots and, everything like that. So presumably they are making sure that they get whatever they can. And also, I would imagine there's probably a couple of other angles to this. They're probably also making sure that the rebels, the rebel groups, aren't getting hold of food and supplies. And of course, the Imperials being the Imperials, probably somebody somewhere along the line, or several people along the line, are probably skimming a bit off the top at every stage. Bix is hassled by an Imperial lieutenant in a very creepy scene who sort of chats her up, kind of says, well, we've shut the comms down, nobody can kind of contact us, perhaps you'd like to come for dinner, that kind of thing. Very kind of lots of sort of abuse of power kind of going on here from a very minor Imperial functionary. And basically Bix and her team, they want to run, but the Imperials have been catching people running, and they just need to kind of hold their nerve, really, and wait for this inspection to finish. Meanwhile, on Chandrila, Luthen is getting stressed out because he can't get hold of Andor, and is having trouble because they can't broadcast a transmission from Chandrila openly without being discovered. And he's basically stuck on Chandrila at Mon Mothma's daughter's wedding for ceremonies which last 3 days. His second in command returns to Coruscant, where and Luthen's art gallery, which is his sort of, he's an art dealer. That's his kind of bona fide job, if you like. And it's interesting. She returns to the art gallery, which of course is empty because Luthen and her are off planet. And we see her accessing what appears to be very high-powered and advanced signalling gear to find out what's happened to Andor. I quite liked it because it was very analog. There was a sort of a plug-in kind of element to it and lots of cables, and that kind of fits with the aesthetic of Star Wars ever since sort of 1977, really. Meanwhile, Luthen is, of course, as I say, he's stuck on Chandrila. He's getting very nervous that Tay and Mon Mothma are sort of having secret chats. We see a stunning scene as the party goes on a wedding hike in the Chandrila Mountains. And basically, Tay is putting the squeeze on Mon Mothma because he's saying, look, I've covered over your financial blemishes. This foundation that you asked for is up and running, which is basically a pipeline of getting money to the rebellion. And he kind of is he's a little bit bitter because he's kind of saying, ironically, whilst I am sort of helping you fund the rebellion, it's rebel activity that has soured my investments. And we found out in the last episode, his wife's left him. And he's at a bit of a low ebb, and he's had some possible bad financial decisions made, or something bad's happened to maybe and basically he's not happy because he's sacrificed a lot to fund or help Mon Mothma fund the rebellion, and meanwhile they are busy screwing over things that he's invested money in, so presumably blowing up factories or causing unrest in the markets. And as I say, he's putting the squeeze on Mon Mothma because he can see how much this traditional Chandrilan wedding is costing, and I imagine he's getting quite bitter because of his money problems. Mon Mothma's husband Perrin already seems to think that Tay is her lover and doesn't really seem too worried about that. I don't know whether this is generally permissive of Chandrilan society or whether their marriage is in a rut. I just don't know. But basically, Luthen and Mon Mothma have a meeting in the corner, and Luthen's very concerned. She says, we'll find a number. In other words, we'll find a way to sort of buy him off or pay him off or keep him happy. And of course, the situation here is that Mon Mothma's been funneling funds through to the rebellion, and she's having to cover up at every stage. Already now, she's had to kind of sacrifice her daughter in this arranged wedding to Skunlan, who has, kind of helped her cover up this misappropriation of funds. And now we've got Tay putting the squeeze on her, and she's basically being boxed into a corner everywhere we go. So it'd be interesting to see what drastic action she might have to take. Are they going to have to kill Tay? Is something else going to happen? What's going to happen about this wedding? Skunlan never looks very happy about it, and his son doesn't look very happy either. We know Leda, her daughter, isn't happy about the wedding either. But this has all basically been arranged to help cover up the rebellion because there are massive, bigger things at stake in the galaxy, right? Okay, going back to the main plot, if you like, the Andor situation. So we have a couple of sort of blaster fights seen between the two camps. Basically, you've got one camp who kind of control the TIE fighter, the TIE Avenger, and are sort of using it as their base. And then a few hundred yards away, you've got the crashed spaceship with the other half of the crew, and they've got Andor, and neither group is good without the other. Andor's the only one that can fly the TIE Avenger. And so basically we've got this kind of standoff. I quite liked it because there was this initial kind of gunfight between the two. And I saw this on the subtitles. One side screams "Echuta" at the other as they're running away. And Echuta is a... I can't remember precisely what it means. It's an insult. We first saw it in Empire Strikes Back when... C-3PO meets another 3PO protocol droid in the corridor of Cloud City, and 3PO says hello, and the other droid says Echuta, and 3PO says how rude. I'm sure it's been translated and someone will know what it means, but I just thought it was nice to kind of see that kind of reference. No one's got any food. The food they have got is mouldy. They've sort of got some food bars left. There's not enough of them. Some of them are mouldy. So it's raining. Andor suggests that they need to start harvesting water because it's not going to rain forever. And of course, there are monsters in the jungle. Anyway, one side, the side that controls the TIE fighter, they start to, with ropes and vines, start to gradually turn it towards the other ship because they want to aim the guns at it. And basically blow away their opposition, although Andor, the pilot, is with them. So I'm not quite sure what that would achieve, unless it was just a threat. But eventually, the two groups decide to parley and meet in the middle of the jungle, and they all lower their guns, and they appear to do a kind of version of rock, paper, scissors, several rounds, presumably to determine who's going to run the group from that point on. Which is kind of interesting because you see them playing this game and it's kind of, you realise how kind of childish the whole thing is, to be honest. Anyway, during the distraction, Andor manages to grab a pistol. It appears to be a Briar pistol. We've seen Briar pistols before in Star Wars. They were originally seen in the Star Wars Dark Forces game. It's the opening pistol that you have in the game. In Series 1 of Andor, we've also seen a Briar pistol. It's just another nice callback to sort of Star Wars lore and gaming history, if you like. And Andor kind of escapes and circumvents his way towards the TIE fighter. Now, whilst the crew are playing rock, paper, scissors, they appear to have forgotten that there are monsters in the jungle. And, of course, the monsters start attacking them. And the monsters, according to the subtitles, are called Doodars. Doodars. There's a subtitle that says Doodar Roars. Doodar. 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 It sounds like a police siren. Doodar, Doodar. Anyway, weird kind of name. Andor scrambles aboard the TIE fighter, and what I liked to see was that all the sort of pirates, if you like, they turn on it and start shooting small arms at the TIE fighter, and of course it has no effect. Now, the reason I'm particularly pleased to see that is there was an old comic strip by Dark Horse when they owned the Star Wars license called Crimson Empire. Some of it was quite crudely drawn, if I remember rightly. I seem to recall that the artist couldn't do sort of 3/4 angles of ships. So you either saw the ships face on or from the top or directly from the side. It was quite crude in that respect. But anyway, there's one particular scene where our hero, who is like an Imperial Royal Guard, there's a TIE fighter screaming down at him. I can't remember if it's a TIE fighter or a TIE interceptor, but it doesn't matter. And he pulls out a pistol and shoots through the centre window, killing the pilot. And that's never sat well with me because these are starfighters. And irrespective as to whether they have shields or not, surely small arms fire should not be able to take them down. So I had a slight smile on my face when I saw small arms blasters and rifles and pistols being fired at this TIE fighter with no effect, because that's exactly how it should be, right? Anyway, the end of this episode, and this is where possibly the major spoiler is coming up. Andor escapes, leaving these people to fight for themselves and presumably get wiped out by the monsters. And as we follow the TIE fighter up from the jungle and turn around, we see temples and we see the giant form of a gas giant. Andor's been on Yavin 4 the whole time. Yavin 4 is the base where the rebels are hiding out in the original Star Wars film. It's the moon planet that the Death Star is trying to blow away in the final battle of Yavin. And presumably, Andor remembers that this is an out-of-the-way kind of planet, and this is possibly key as to why the rebels found their base on Yavin 4 in the first place. I really liked that. That was like, oh, nice. So, of course, as the middle of 3 episodes, we've got over the establishment episode. Obviously, we've got the denouement to come. This middle episode is just kind of progressing the plot with a few revelations. But yeah, another solid episode. Particularly liked the ending with the reveal of Yavin 4, the fact they've been there the whole time. And you kind of see how petty this whole thing's been, because this group of pirates or whatever they are on the planet are in this tiny little area, and as the TIE fighter takes off and zooms off, you can just see how vast the jungle is, and it's just kind of, it's like a microcosm of, you know, what's happening in the universe, in the galaxy, I guess. Yeah, so there you go. Another good episode, some stunning scenery, with a whole lot of underlying tension in the whole episode. There's tension, obviously, with Andor's situation, being held hostage and not being able to escape and complete his mission. There's tension with Luthen, wondering what Mon Mothma's up to, and Mon Mothma having the squeeze put on her. There's tension with Bix and the Imperial census. Don't know if I mentioned this, but I thought it was interesting. As we get a panning shot across Luthen's art gallery, we see some of the artifacts, and I'm sure we see Jedi Plo Koon's sort of metal kind of face headgear at one point. I could be imagining it, and I may have got the name wrong, but there you go. But yes, kind of tense, kind of ramping up the tension across everywhere, really. My guess would be that Andor is probably going to rock up and save Bix and his friends from the Imperials. I don't know. I am quite deliberately not watching any other reviews of Andor or any other material until I've finished each block, because I don't want to be influenced by my review of what other people might say. So this is an immediate off-the-cuff reaction. I've literally just finished watching the episode. I'm doing it one episode at a time, and there's one more episode to go this week. So, thank you very much for watching this episode of Total Ramblings. I hope to see you in the next one. Please do all the usual YouTube-y stuff, like, subscribe, share, comment, blah-de-blah-de-blah, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.